Hello and welcome back, dear viewers, to another chilling episode on Dark Tales. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because you don't want to miss the terrifying stories we share every week. Tonight's video is very special. It's not just a story, it's a real horror experience that happened during a stormy, rainy night. Get comfortable, turn off the lights, and put on your headphones. It was a cold autumn night, and the rain was pouring like never before. The streets were empty, the sky roared with thunder, and every drop that hit the window felt like a warning. I, Adam, had decided to spend the night alone in my late grandfather's house, a small, decaying home near the edge of a dark forest. I hadn't been back since the funeral. The house had been sitting there, untouched, and something about that rainy night made me feel like I had to check on it. Just one night, I told myself. I arrived around 9 p.m. The house looked exactly as I remembered, old, damp, and disturbingly quiet. As the rain slapped against the windows and the floorboards creaked beneath my feet, I lit the fireplace, trying to push away the cold that seemed to seep through the walls. As I walked through the house, checking each room, I noticed something odd. There was an old photograph on the hallway wall, my grandfather standing in front of the house, same as always. But this time, there was someone else in the background. A tall figure, face obscured, standing in the shadows just behind him. I could have sworn that figure wasn't there before. I shook it off. It's just the lighting, maybe I never noticed it, I told myself. Midnight came. The storm raged on. I laid on the couch, eyes growing heavy, when suddenly I heard a knock at the door. Soft. Deliberate. I froze. No one comes out here. Not at this hour. Not during a storm like this. I walked to the door and peeked through the curtain, no one. Just rain and darkness. I turned back toward the couch, trying to calm myself, but then another knock. Louder. Closer. I rushed to the window, and that's when I saw it. A tall, motionless figure standing in the middle of the yard. Soaked from the rain. Facing directly at the house. At me. I closed the curtains, turned off the lights, and grabbed a kitchen knife. My hands were shaking. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination. Until I heard it again. Footsteps. Inside. Heavy, slow, creaking footsteps, moving across the floorboards downstairs. I looked down the hallway, nothing. No one. But the footsteps, they were getting louder. I ran upstairs, locked myself in the bedroom, and backed into a corner. Then I saw it, a shadow moving under the door. It stopped. Silence. Seconds passed like hours. Then, the door creaked open. No one was there. But I heard it, a whisper, barely audible, chilling and otherworldly. This isn't your home, leave. I bolted. I didn't care about the rain. I didn't care about my shoes. I ran through the storm, jumped in my car, and didn't look back. The next morning, I returned with the police. The house was empty. Nothing was stolen. No sign of anyone entering. But in the upstairs bedroom, scratched into the wooden wall behind the bed, were the words, "You're next." It was late October, the kind of evening where the rain doesn't fall, it soaks. Thick droplets hit the pavement like nails, and thunder rolled endlessly across the sky. But none of that stopped Jason, a 32-year-old fitness freak who never skipped a run, rain or shine. He always said, discipline over comfort. That night, around 10:30 p.m., he laced up his shoes, pulled on a rainproof hoodie, and headed to the forest trail just outside town. The trail was always peaceful, even under heavy rain. But that night, it felt wrong. Jason began jogging, music blasting in his ears, the rhythm of his steps in sync with the sound of the storm. But after about 10 minutes, he noticed something strange. Every time he turned his head slightly, he saw it, a shadow, a figure, moving just beyond the trees to his right. He stopped, took out his earbuds. Nothing but rain. He chuckled to himself, paranoia. Just trees and lightning. He kept running. Faster. But the feeling didn't go away. It got worse. The trees seemed to be watching. The trail behind him was darker than before, like it was closing. And then, he heard it. Footsteps. Not his. He paused and turned around. No one. But when lightning flashed, he saw it. A tall, soaking figure standing at the edge of the trail, motionless, just staring. Jason yelled, "Hey! You okay?" No answer. Another flash of lightning, the figure was now closer. He backed away and started jogging again. Then sprinting. No matter how fast he ran, the footsteps behind him stayed the same distance. He could hear them. Splashing in the mud. Getting heavier. Faster. But he never saw who or what it was. He finally reached the parking lot, completely alone. He turned around, panting, soaked, terrified. No one was there. But on the hood of his car, there was a handprint. Long, thin fingers, stretching too wide to be human. Jason sped off, heart racing. He didn't speak about it to anyone for weeks. But the worst part? Ever since that night, every time it rains, he finds muddy footprints outside his apartment door. Always fresh. Always facing the door. And once, just once, he found a note stuck to his window. Written in rain-smudged ink. Still running? It started 2 years ago. I was living in a small apartment near the edge of town. A quiet place. Nothing unusual. But everything changed one night, a night soaked in rain. I had just come home from work. It was nearly midnight, and the storm outside was relentless. Thunder cracked the sky like bones breaking, and rain poured like it wanted to drown the whole world. I parked my car and ran toward my building, but as I reached the entrance, I saw him. A man in a yellow raincoat. He was standing completely still near the dumpster, head down, arms by his sides. His coat was old, torn in places, and soaked. I slowed my steps. He didn't move. Didn't even flinch when lightning lit up the whole street. "Hey, are you okay?" I called out. Nothing. I walked past him, uneasy, and entered the building. But something felt wrong, a chill down my spine that wouldn't go away. I checked from the window upstairs. He was gone. The next night, it rained again. And he was there again. Same spot. Same posture. I watched him from behind my curtain. I didn't go out. Didn't blink. And then, as the lightning struck, he looked up. Right at my window. I shut the curtain, heart pounding. I didn't sleep that night. Over the next few weeks, every time it rained, he appeared. Sometimes closer. Sometimes across the street. Once, just outside my window on the fire escape. But only when it rained. Only when I was alone. I called the police once. They came. He was gone. They told me maybe it was a homeless man or someone playing a prank. I tried to believe that. Until one night. I found muddy footprints inside my apartment. Leading from the living room window to the kitchen. And out again. But the windows were locked. Always locked. I started seeing him in other places. At the grocery store parking lot. Across the street from my job. Always when it rained. Always watching. One day, I asked an old woman in the building about it. She went pale and said, "That man. He's been around here since the 80s. A tenant was murdered in your apartment, stabbed during a thunderstorm. They say the killer wore a yellow raincoat and was never caught. I moved out that same month. But even now, years later, whenever it rains, I sometimes see a flash of yellow out of the corner of my eye. And once, last year, I woke up at 3 a.m. during a storm. There were wet footprints on the floor, leading to my bedroom door. And outside my window, a piece of yellow fabric stuck to the latch. There's something strange about the sound of rain. It calms most people. But for me, it brings back a memory I wish I could forget. It happened 3 years ago. I was visiting my cousin's cabin deep in the countryside. No cell service, no neighbors, just trees, wind, and silence. It was supposed to be a peaceful weekend. Just me, my cousin Daniel, and his dog Milo. But then came the storm. It started with a knock on the door. Not loud. Not urgent. Just soft. Repetitive. Daniel and I looked at each other, confused. It was nearly midnight, and we hadn't seen another person for miles. He peeked through the peephole. Nobody. Probably the wind, he said. But the knocking continued, now on the back door. We rushed to check. Nothing. Just the rain hammering the roof. Milo, the dog, started growling. Not barking. Just a low, steady growl, eyes fixed on the window. I looked outside. That's when I saw her. A girl. Standing in the field. In the rain. Barefoot. Pale. Still. Her hair stuck to her face. Her dress soaked and clinging to her small frame. She didn't move. I opened the door to yell out, "Are you okay?" But Daniel slammed it shut. "No. Don't talk to her," he said, his voice trembling. I was shocked. "She's just a kid." Daniel shook his head. "She's not. I've seen her before." That night, he told me everything. The locals call her the drowned girl. Legend says a girl had died in that forest decades ago, fell into a river during a storm and was never found. Ever since, people claim they saw her when it rains. If you speak to her, she follows you. If you invite her in, you disappear. I laughed it off. "Come on, you believe that?" He didn't answer. At around 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of whispers. Low. Wet. Like someone whispering underwater. I followed the sound down the hall, to the living room. The window was open. Curtains swaying in the wind. And outside. She was there again. Closer this time. Smiling. Her mouth didn't move, but the whisper was louder. "Let me in." I stumbled backward, heart racing. The door creaked. I turned, it was Daniel. He looked pale, distant. "She's calling me," he whispered. Then he walked to the door. I tried to stop him, begged him not to open it, but I couldn't move. It was like my whole body was frozen in fear. He opened the door. She was gone. Daniel stepped outside. The wind howled. The rain poured. And then, silence. I ran after him, but he was gone. No footprints. No sign of struggle. Just one thing on the porch. A small, wet doll. With Daniel's watch tied around its neck. I reported him missing. Search teams looked for days. Nothing. I tried to convince myself it was just a terrible accident. But I know what I saw. And to this day, every time it rains, I hear that whisper again. "Let me in." They say rain washes everything away, the dirt, the pain, the memories. But for me, rain brings it back. It started in November, during one of the heaviest storms in our town's history. The streets were flooded, schools were closed, and the sky had been dark for days. I had just moved into a small rental house at the edge of town. It was old but cheap, and I needed the silence to finish writing my thesis. I thought I was alone. But something, or someone, was already there. The first time it happened, it was around 2 a.m. Rain was pouring outside, wind howling like screams through the windows. I was writing in the kitchen when I heard it. A whisper. It sounded like it came from the hallway. Faint, like a voice trapped behind a wall. I froze. Listened. It said, "Come outside." I rushed to the window, no one there. checked the hallway, empty. I thought I was just tired. Sleep deprived. But it happened again the next night. And the next. Every time it rained, the whisper returned. One night, I decided to record it. I placed my phone on the kitchen table, turned on the voice recorder, and left it running while I stepped into the shower. The rain outside was relentless. When I returned, the house was freezing. The windows were fogged. And on the mirror in the bathroom, written in the condensation, were 2 words. Join US. I hadn't written it. Hands trembling, I played back the recording. Static. Then faintly, underneath the sound of rain, multiple voices. Layered. Whispers. Moaning. And one phrase repeated over and over. He hears us now. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room, lights on, holding a flashlight like a weapon. At exactly 3:33 a.m., the power went out. And then I heard it, footsteps. Wet. Barefoot. Dragging along the wooden floor. I shined the flashlight toward the hallway. There were footprints. Leading from the front door to my bedroom. I followed them, heart pounding, breath shaking. When I opened the door, there was someone standing at the window, facing away. Tall. Soaking. Shoulders twitching slightly as if sobbing. I whispered, "Who are you?" They turned around slowly. But instead of a face, it was just a mouth. A wide, wet grin stretching across a featureless head. And then it whispered, "You let us in." I blacked out. When I woke up, it was morning. The rain had stopped. The house was dry. No footprints. No messages. No figure. But the voices never stopped. Now, whenever it rains, in any house, any city, I hear them again. Calling. Laughing. Waiting.